Today's guest is a popular TV and film star currently making his Broadway debut as the Brute, formerly known as Stanley Kowalski in A Streetcar Named Desire. Please welcome Mr. Blair Underwood.
I love that. Formerly known as Stanley
Formerly
Kowalski.
known. Now he's just Stanley, right?
Now he's just Stanley. Exactly.
I'm going to start right off the bat and tell you that I just saw the show and I'm completely endorsing. I loved this production of Streetcar Named Desire.
Oh, good.
I know you guys just started, but
Yeah.
it is in incredible shape and it's just a beautiful production. You're like
Oh,
a
thank
week
you.
into it. How do you feel?
We are. We just finished our first week of previews with the audience, and thank God you were there. And I couldn't be more excited, but I feel like we've been in a bubble. Because
Yeah.
we had 5 weeks of rehearsal and then, tech,
Yeah.
a whole week of tech. So it's nice to hear people kind of responding to it. But I'll tell you, I think each one of us raised the bar so high, and we knew anybody that comes into the audience, you're always going to hear about the ghost of Brando and Vivian Lee and all of those, and you know that. So, you want to just kind of bring your A games. And I know everybody did, from Emily Mann, the director, to the set design, Eugene Lee, and
Beautiful
the
set.
characters, of course. So I'm just honored and humbled to be a part of it. I know Daphne Rubin-Vega, who plays Stella, is a friend of yours, and Nicole Parker, who plays Blanche Wood Harris, is Mitch. So it's a fun ensemble. Before you can get to the work itself, we're having a great time.
I bet you never thought you would get to play Stanley in A Streetcar.
No, Paul, it's one of those things you don't think about. I didn't think about, because when would they ever do a multiracial casting and cast Stanley as African American? You just, it wasn't top of my list. Initially, but when the opportunity came, I was like, oh my God, I would love to do that.
Now this is thanks to Stephen Bird. There's this producer,
Absolutely.
Stephen Bird, who did the all-black Cat and Hot Tin Roof a
Yep.
few years back. And I know you auditioned for that, right? You wanted to play Brick in that.
Well, I didn't audition.
didn't
We had a
audition.
conversation about it.
Okay.
No, because they had offered it to Terrence Howard, who had just been nominated for an Oscar, and it's just, hey, that's how it happens in this business. But it wasn't meant to be. But I came to New York. I think I had a day or two, and I came to see Cat on the Hot Tin Roof, and I ran into Stephen in the lobby.
Okay.
And I said, dude, you know I wanted to play Brick. You know that. He goes, I know, but I'm just kind of messing with him. But he said, I have the rights for Streetcar that I want to do in a few years.
You said it then?
He said it then,
Wow.
in the lobby of the Broadhurst.
Right,
Of
where
all
you're now
places, because we didn't know
performing.
where we were going to be.
Yeah.
Even once he had the money. So it's just ironic it all turned out to be back at the Broadhurst again.
So did he right then say you could be Stanley?
No, not at all. And he's a
Did
smart
you immediately think I should be Stanley?
I immediately thought I would like to play Stanley.
Right.
But he's a smart man, so he's non-committal. And who knows if it would even make business sense 4 years later for me to do it in his mind. But to his word, he said, when the time comes, let's have a conversation, and it worked out.
Now let's get this over with. So a few minutes into the show, you take your shirt off. And the audience just goes nuts. I mean, what's it? Are you used to? I know you're used
Brando
to being.
started that, though, see.
I know he took it. I know it's not. I'm not saying that you were like, well, I'm gonna take my shirt off. No, everybody takes their shirt off. It's part of it.
Exactly.
You've been on like the People magazine Beautiful list, and
Paid people off along the way. Just get me on the list. No, I'm kidding.
I heard the other night, like when you say Stella, where's my Stella? That some people in the audience have said, like, I'm right here, baby.
Oh my God, Paul! It kind of ruins the moment for
Yeah, I know.
Like, here I am, baby. I was like, okay, wow, what do you do with that?
So what is it like to hear people actually like react like that?
Well, it's okay.
How big is your ego right now?
It's not that big. It's not that big. Nicole, who plays Blanche, she always makes jokes about it. She said, we just got to take a pause, when that happens, and we'll just ride that wave and keep on going. It's interesting that, when they constructed it, when Tennessee Williams did it, and of course when they initially did it, that's built in, as you said, and it's early in the play.
Yeah.
So it's fine to kind of have that levity with these characters.
But did you go on a special Stanley workout, or you just always look ready for?
No, man. Listen, I had to. I said, I can't be taking my shirt off 8 shows a week and be looking flabby and go from a 6-pack to a juice pack. I got to try to keep it intact. So no. Plus, my wife just said, don't embarrass yourself. Stay in the gym.
So okay, so Stanley is no longer a Polak. I'm a Polak. I can say that. How much was the script adjusted? Like, how many? Were there actual references that had to be removed?
We got permission from the Tennessee Williams estate to just remove the Polish references.
Yeah.
And that comes up maybe 3 or 4 times in the script, and that's really it. So we don't give the Stanley a last name. It's just Stanley. I think when Blanche first comes out, she said, "I'm looking for my sister Stella Dubois, Mrs. Stanley, Kowalski." So she says Mrs. Stanley, and then she's cut off.
Right.
And that's it.
Right.
There's one reference to a restaurant they were going out to called, in the normal script, it's a Galatoire's. Galatoire's was an integrated restaurant in the 50s. So Dooky Chase was a real restaurant that was integrated then and is still in New Orleans now. Wow. So we use Duke Chase. And that's really it.
Yeah.
That's really it. Other than that, it's the same script. But what's interesting, and you've seen it, I think it resonates differently because you have a certain aesthetic and a certain cultural reference. You know, the Dubois sisters are in our story, even though we don't speak to it, but they could historically accurately be descendants of the free people of color, knowing that history of New Orleans and the free people of color. I've just found out my 4 times great-grandfather in Virginia was a free person of color that had 200 acres of land, very wealthy in Virginia. But especially in the New Orleans culture, the gens de couleur libre, the free people of color, there are many people who had wealth and esteem, just like it would have plantations like Belle Rive. And these sisters, the Dubois sisters, are descendants from there. So a good example, when Blanche Dubois says, we are French Huguenots, we're descendants of the French Huguenots, that is historically accurate and consistent with the free people of color, that French lineage. So it's interesting. And then and the fact, too, that in the casting, these sisters are light-complected and Stanley is dark-complected. That is built in the black culture, especially in Louisiana. You know, we'd have these things called brown paper bag tests that a lot of people never heard of. And that would say if you were the shade of a brown paper bag, you're okay. Darker than that, don't come around. Don't intermingle. So that's using the same script, same text, but different aesthetic, it resonates in a different way.
I have to think that Tennessee Williams would be loving this production because it's so sexy, and I bought all the relationships, and it just felt alive. I mean, whatever you guys are doing, it feels like it was written yesterday, and it's just electric.
Thank you for saying that, because you know there have been those who thought initially, I guess when they did Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, like Tennessee Williams be turning over in his grave, and they don't realize that Tennessee Williams, you know, this play opened in '47, the movie's in '51. 1955 was the first African-American production in Los Angeles, starring James Edwards in Los Angeles. Tennessee Williams gave the okay for that. And there's a whole history of productions he gave his okay for. I was just watching this documentary, Paul, called Tennessee Williams South. You see him say, he says, you know, first of all, I got all my idioms from black folks in the South. You know, he said, my father used to come home and say, you look as nervous as a cat on a hot tin roof. He said, we got that from black folks. But he also says, he says, I always felt I was black. In his own words. So, you know, this is a man I think some people would like to believe he would not like this, but I think, to your point, I think he understood the South. He understood the socializing and the intermingling of the races, and it was just something that's very comfortable in New Orleans, in the French Quarter, especially in New Orleans.
It definitely gives the flavor of the community and oh my God, Terrence Blanchard's music.
Oh, what?
Beautiful, beautiful.
How great! I want that CD. I need a CD.
I want that CD too. So what about the? I mean, he's a bad boy, Stanley. I mean, he has this rage in him. What was it like, sort of tapping into that? Because you're a nice guy, and then you kind of explode. What's it been like?
I love it.
Yeah.
Because you know, look, if to live in, you know, the confines of our everyday life, but to be able to open up that vein and just vent and do it in a safe context, not to hurt anybody on stage, but you know, we all have it in us. So, but it's nice to tap into that every once in a while. And
so what's it like? What's it been like working with Nicole Parker and Daphne Rubin-Vega? Because they both get the brunt of it.
They do, don't they?
You go after both of them.
They're good sports about it all, but no, it's terrific. I mean, I'm so happy for you know, for all of us to have the opportunity. But Nicole is wonderful as Blanche, and you know, a lot of people may not know her work, and I think they'll be pleasantly surprised. And she surprises people every night. It's beautiful. And Daphne, who blew me away when I first saw her in Rent, the original cast. So now I get to lock lips with her 8 times a week on the stage. Did I say that? That's it. She said, "Don't say that. Don't say that."
So, what was your first exposure to Streetcar? Did you see the movie like when you were a kid?
No, when I was a kid, I must have read it in college. I think I read it in college. But when Stephen and Bird and I talked about this 4 years ago, I went and saw the movie then, and haven't really looked at it since then because I didn't want to be swayed too much. But I'm glad I saw it because it's such a point of reference in people's minds. I know some actors don't want to see anything that people will compare it to, but it helped me actually to see what was done, what worked, and what's, you know, where can we be unique and fresh.
Obviously, what you're doing is not Marlon Brando at all.
No
marble mouth, and you got a totally different thing going on.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I shot a film in New Orleans in July, the whole month of July. So spending all that time in New Orleans, and I lived right outside the French Quarter. I had a driver who would take me to the set every day, and when I'd hear his rhythms and his voice, his accent, it sounded like I thought Stanley would sound. So I hope he doesn't mind me saying, but I would record our conversations. I won't put it on blast, but I record the conversation. I would just listen to the rhythm and the syncopation. And then I had another friend who...
So does this guy know that he's now on Broadway, basically?
He does now. And there's another friend of mine who's born and raised in New Orleans, and he was nice enough to read my script and read every single line so I could hear his melody. Huh. And so what I'm playing with is a combination of those two.
Right.
But I did want to make it very unique to New Orleans, which would, I think, make it different than what people had seen.
You've been married to your wife, Desiree, what, like 18 years?
Yeah, it's our 18 years.
Long running.
Long time.
What does she think about you being Stanley on Broadway? Did you bring in the brute home at all?
No, I tried not to. But no, she's excited about it. She's very, very, very happy about it. And she came in with our 3 kids the other day, just left yesterday, Easter Sunday. But no, she's excited to just keep that mess on the stage. Don't bring that mess home to me.
Had you been thinking about Broadway for a while? I mean, is this...
Yeah.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah. You know, I'd studied theater at Carnegie Mellon.
Right.
And had always wanted to do Broadway. I've been fortunate to come in and out of New York and Pearly, which 5 years ago, and Shakespeare in the Park in '93. I'd done a one-man show in Los Angeles.
I Am For.
I Am For.
Yeah, from the mountaintop to hip-hop.
Look at you. Get down,
my research.
So yeah, so I love the theater. It's kind of where I started. I mean, in high school, doing just local dinner theaters at night. So I've always loved it, but Broadway is the ultimate in the American theater experience, and I've always wanted to do it. So it's a nice way to kind of step on the Broadway stage. So
is it true that your first semi-legit stage work was at Busch Gardens?
No, you didn't. No, you didn't.
I did.
That is true.
So tell me about Busch Gardens. What did you do at Busch Gardens? And is there any video available of that?
I hope not. I hope not. No, I did 2 summers actually when I was at Carnegie Mellon during the summer, and I did the country show. I think we did like 5, 6 shows.
Like a country western show.
Country western show. I was square dancing and hold down and then clogging and all that.
Have you done any square dancing since then?
I have not. I have not, and will not. And then the next year I came back and did the main stage show. But you know, for me, because I was studying theater, so for me it was a great summer gig, just to, if nothing else, be comfortable in front of an audience time and time again. Yeah. And get paid. And you're like an Army brat, right? Your dad was in the Army, and so you sort of went all over the place. Where'd you grow up? Where were some of the spots? Oh man, well, Germany when I was young, like 3 months old, but Germany, Colorado, Michigan, Kansas, Georgia, but pretty consistently Virginia. We'd always leave, we lived in Alexandria, Virginia, Woodbridge, Virginia, Petersburg, where my dad retired.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Actually, when I saw Streetcar the other day, there was a whole group from Petersburg,
Virginia,
who drove up. They were all wearing special T-shirts, Petersburg Pride. Yeah. And they all drove up to see you, and then you got a proclamation from the mayor.
From the mayor of Petersburg.
And then they all drove back. How was that?
It was amazing. It was humbling and amazing because, I heard some rumblings that they want to do something. I knew they were coming. Of course, my dad came, my brother came. Yeah. They wanted to do something after the production. I had no idea they were going to do it right after the curtain call in front of the entire audience.
I enjoyed it.
Did you?
No, I'm not from Petersburg.
All right, good. Good. So, I didn't want to impose on everybody, but no. To be honest with you, it was humbling, and it meant a lot to me that the town and the city even had the thought to bring busloads of people up from Petersburg, Virginia, which is a 6-hour bus ride, and come see the matinee and then go back.
It's a long day.
It's a long day.
It was worth the drive.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So what was your first time ever on stage? When you first said, I want to get up there and look at me.
There is that aspect of it, sadly. I think the first time getting paid for it was in Petersburg. I was working at Colonial Heights, a place called the Swift Creek Mill Playhouse. And it's the first time I really got paid for it. I think I got paid $75 a week.
And what was that?
What Finian's Rainbow.
Ah, Finian's.
I was one of the gospeliers.
You sing?
Well, you saw Pearly, so I can hold a tune. I don't call myself
You held a tune. So you don't have big desires to do a musical? Or?
My dear friend Nikanani Rose, who was in Pearly also, she says, baby, you're not a singer, but you're musical. You can hold a tune. I was like, all right.
Thanks, Anika, I think.
Yeah. Anika, who is a great singer, so I'll take that from her.
She's a great singer.
Good friend, so.
She's a Tony Award-winning Broadway star.
She's a Broadway baby. Yeah.
So then in high school you did a lot of shows, and were you a popular kid? What were you like?
I was always the new kid because we moved around so much. So I always felt like I was finding my way. Yeah. In the new school, the new church, the new wherever, the new neighborhood.
Now what about your name, Blair? Now, I've always wondered about your name.
Underwear. Because they call me, of course, Blair Underwear. And every variation on that theme, trust me. I said, one of these days I'm going to laugh all the way to the bank. So I'm thinking, telling my wife she should design this, but I may do like ladies' underwear like Victoria's Secret. I can't tell you what feels right, but I know what looks good. Who better than a man to say what looks sexy on a woman?
If you put your picture on the box, I'm sure they'll buy it. They'll buy those panties.
Blair's underwear.
Well, the only Blair I knew before you was Blair from The Facts of Life.
Yeah, that's right.
So I mean, where'd that name come from? How'd your parents come up with that? Did you hate them for a long time for it, or?
No, I hate him. I was confused for a long time.
Right.
You know, there was a sportscaster or newscaster on the Today Show when I was born. His name was Frank Blair.
Okay.
My older brother's name is Frank.
Huh.
And my dad, to this day, he can't tell you where it came from.
Oh, really?
I was born and they didn't have a name for me yet. And my dad said, what was that? I go, Frank. And I think it was on the front of his consciousness. He said, okay, Frank Blair. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
It was really that random.
It probably helped you get noticed once you moved to New York.
Well, it did. I mean, it's different.
Yeah, it's cool.
You know, yeah.
You've owned it. You've owned it. Nothing feminine about that name anymore. Nothing at all.
Well, good.
So you moved to New York, right? And then did you? What was that like? What were you like when you first moved to the city? Were you? I want to hear about the early days.
Yeah, I was kind of shell shocked because I left Carnegie Mellon because it just got too expensive. To be honest with you, I left in the middle of my third year and moved in with an older woman who was an angel to me. Her name was Elsie Rudder. This is a lady from Barbados, and she was, she worked on Park Avenue with the family up here, and she'd always, that apartment was no bigger than this room.
Wow.
Actually. I mean, between the bedroom and the kitchen and the living room, it was about this big. And she gave me her bed and said, I'll sleep on the couch, and insisted. And she'd make me breakfast before she'd walk out, and she was a domestic up on at Park Avenue, Fifth Avenue.
Wow.
And she was just that angel to me, and she said, all you got to do is just go find a job. So I would literally just go out and try to whip my agents into shape and say, just get me in the room, just let me meet with people, and then we'll go from there. So fortunately, one of my first gigs was the Cosby Show.
Right.
In 1985.
Right.
A long time ago, man. 1985. But what it did, it really opened up some doors because people wanted to know, who was this kid who just came out of college and got on the Cosby Show in his first week? And
it led to one of my favorite Blair Underwood credits, Krush Groove.
That's
Gotta
funny.
love the breakdancing movies. And Krush Groove was like the really cool one. Krush Groove was like the real one. Well, you had the Fat Boys.
The Fat Boys,
Sheila
Curtis
E.
Blow.
Curtis
Sheila E,
Blow.
that's right.
I mean, and introducing Blair Underwood.
Damn, Paul, you're not playing.
Did you fight for that introducing credit?
The agent did, but I'm glad they did.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to start somewhere.
I mean,
you know what's, I'm ashamed now to say, I kind of played it down for years after that.
Krush Groove.
Yeah, Krush Groove. But then somewhere along the way I realized that what it meant to a lot of people who were teenagers at that time coming up, and there was a lot of nostalgia associated with that. And people said, I love that movie. Why play it down? So I've come to really embrace it, and we all got to start somewhere. So
what about Krush Groove, the musical on Broadway? What do you think?
Hey, it's not a bad idea.
Hey, let's get Stephen Bird, and why don't you produce that with Stephen Bird?
Bring Russell Simmons in to it.
Did you breakdance in a movie? I don't remember how much you.
No, I didn't breakdance.
You didn't, right? No, you were like the.
I played Russell. Simmons before anybody knew.
Okay.
Before anybody knew what Russell, what he looked like or knew much about him.
So you can't breakdance.
I can't. No.
Oh wow. No. So you can't do a spin.
No, but you know what? I'm glad we get a chance to do a little second line. You've seen the show, so at the beginning of the second act, do a little.
Oh, the dance.
Kind of moving and dancing a little bit.
Well, the other day when you did it, you must have done something really good because I was sitting next to your director and she got really excited and cheered after.
Oh, did she?
You did your little move. Yeah, you do a little dancing.
She said he didn't trip this time.
When you were back in New York back then, were you seeing theater?
I couldn't afford theater too much, but I do remember actually Dreamgirls was up. I remember knocking on the door, and Oba Babatunde, who's become a good friend over the years, he was near the backstage door, and I said, dude, man, I'm just, I'm in college, I'm studying theater, and it's funny, I hadn't thought of this in a while. And I said, I want to do this one day. And he said, well, come on in. And he brought me in, he showed me the stage. He said, this is it, man, this is the Broadway stage. And, he was very inspiring and very inspirational, and very giving.
That's
very
amazing.
cool. I really hadn't even connected those dots. Oh, I have to call him and thank him.
Now, of course, a lot of people fell in love with you from LA Law. So how fast did life get fabulous after you got on LA Law? I mean, it was pretty quick, right?
Pretty fast and furious. I mean, I was 21 years old. I'd just been out of college a year and a half.
Wow.
And you know, it just, everything changed.
Did you keep your head on straight?
It's a little tilted.
Yeah, a little bit.
It's a little crooked, but not too bad. I mean, I'm thankful I had the foundation of my parents and my family, very close-knit family. And, you know, all that moving around we did, what it did was it really kind of just solidified that unit. So if I started to spin out too much, either my brother or my sisters would say, dude, come on, just, it ain't that deep. It really ain't that deep. So I really try not to even go there, but yeah, but it changed really, it really changed fast. The opportunities came professionally and, you know, financially, it put things at ease for a while. Anyway. But it was a great ride. It was 7 years of my life.
You worked nonstop, and we're not even going to talk about the event because that was frustrating to watch as a viewer. We're not talking about the event. Skip that topic. Although you were very good on it.
Thank you, but it was frustrating for me too.
Do you feel like you get the chance in LA to really sort of show your stuff, or is something like Streetcar so refreshing because it's like, look what I can do? You know what I mean?
I do know what you mean. This is refreshing, of course, because it's stage and it's theater, and you get to just creatively be fulfilled to take that ride for 2 hours and 40 minutes every week, every night, sometimes twice a day. So that's nice, and those opportunities that challenge you as an actor are few and far between for me.
So do you think that we might be seeing you hopefully do more on Broadway and on stage?
I hope so. You know, one of my heroes who I've had a chance to work with twice is James Earl Jones.
Yeah.
I look at him, I don't know how old Mr. Jones is, 81, 88. He's in his 80s, I know that.
Yeah, he's in his 80s.
And he goes from play to play to play to play and just keeps going. So
gonna be the next James Earl Jones. Let's work on that. I like
when I'm 80, I'm gonna be going from play to play.
Well, everybody needs to check out A Streetcar Named Desire. I mean,
please.
It's a beautiful production, and I'm so thrilled that you're on Broadway and you're doing this.
Thank you.
It's really one of the highlights of the season for me.
Wow.
Absolutely.
That makes my day. Yeah, no, really, thank you.
Thank you so much for coming in.
Absolutely.
It's so great to meet you. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.